I would like to start with, when I say Arabic content or the rise of original Arabic content, how would you describe the status of that these days? I would like to go around. Just tell me, within one word or two words, how would you describe the status of original Arabic content in our part of the world?
Good afternoon, everyone. Definitely in the last years, in the recent years, there has been a growing demand. There has been a growing demand due to the the rise of platforms, which led to more demand in terms of TV series, and also there is more demand on Arabic movies. And this is leading to accumulation of experiences and doing different genres from short, like 10 episode, 12 episode, varied from the norm of 30 episodes, which we used to see with free-to-air television, creating more and more competitive content, I would call it, and creating better quality with time. So this is in a nutshell.
I asked for one word. What is that one word you would use?
Tricky. One word to describe...
the status of original Arabic content.
Good.
Tarek?
One word?
One word.
Okay. Turbulent.
Turbulent. Can you elaborate a bit on that?
I think there's, with the rise of platforms again and the box office, especially now in Saudi, that's really opened things up from a market standpoint. I think there's become the market is trying to become more organized from top to bottom, but from top specifically, and perhaps introduce workflows similar to workflows that are being utilized abroad. But on ground, there's a big gap between, in my opinion, between what the people that are planning, the planners and the people that are strategizing are trying to execute, and what can actually be executed.
Do you agree with that, Wesam?
Absolutely. I think, first of all, can I give you my one word?
Sure.
My one word is exciting, for sure.
Exciting.
Of course. I think
but is it turbulent?
And I don't disagree with Tarek either. I think there is still a big opportunity in how content is made and how it resonates with the audience and how we ensure its monetization potential and audience engagement with it as well. I think, compared to markets in the West, especially when it comes to the talent that's developing the content, they're still nascent. And I gave an example yesterday of, the typical American writer would probably have to write 100 more scripts before their scripts get picked up and shown on a platform. So that brings a lot of humbling and desire to improve the craft, so to speak. Where in our region, it could be from the first script they ever write or from the second or the third one, and all of a sudden it's on one of the biggest platforms or a wide distribution run in Saudi. And as a result of that, there isn't as much desire to improve the craft, but also due to the lack of experience, especially in terms of achieving genre conventions. Because as you know, Houda, our audience is very sophisticated. They know their genres very well. So if I'm going to make them something that's Saudi and slap a horror on it as a genre or sci-fi and not achieve those genre conventions, it creates mistrust and they will never come back to it. So I think this is the opportunity, but I say excitement because the word original content, we've always had original content, right? But that repackaging of what is original content happened in 2012 or 13 with Netflix. And then until 2017 or 18 did we start seeing original content in the region. So fast forward from that time until today, there's a wealth of original content. The experience is building. It's resonating with the audience a lot more than it did 5 years ago. So I believe it is exciting, but there is an opportunity to grow it further and to perfect it even better.
Hi, everyone. I also agree with everything you guys have said. And so my word, it's two, but it's you can hyphenate it into one. I'd say it's the golden era of Arabic original content. doesn't mean that it's it's finessed and it's there is no turbulency, as you're saying. Of course there is, and it's exciting. But just the notion that a screenwriter can have their first script be made and then produced and distributed and seen is an exciting time where you have a lot of people who are there to support Arabic content, who are hungry for it. The audience is looking for it. So there's so many things that are right. Whether they're going to be great now or whether you're going to see that rise, it's the time for experimenting. It's the time for doing something different, for learning from each other, and the monetization, making it financially sustainable.
I'll come to this
Yeah,
point.
no, I'm saying, yeah, but those things, of course, are not there yet. But it's sort of like a cart before the horse.
Speaking of talent, so you say that, you know, sometimes a scriptwriter get the chance from the first script to have their work, you know, go on air, let's say, right? But we also hear a lot that we have scarcity of talents across the entire spectrum of producing content, be it from script writing to directing to producing, you name it, right? Do you agree with that? Or do we really have talents, but we are not giving them the platform to show their work and or to at least show the quality of their work?
I think it depends who you ask.
I'm asking you. I mean, you produce content, right? You put content in the market, all of you guys. So I'm asking you.
But yeah.
I mean, again, like Sam said, depend who you're asking. Because it's about the ecosystem, in my opinion. And exactly to his point, if you talk about, it starts with the commissioner from the network or the platform, and here the dynamics of giving good time to develop and for script writers to write first and second and third draft, or to nurture and embrace new talent in terms of new directors, new writers, and so forth. This is about the ecosystem. So back to the point you mentioned, that we're not giving as much opportunity as we should to new talent. Yes, it does exist. There are new talent coming, but not as much as we should do to nurture and give the right time and the right opportunities to these talents to contribute. Because platforms and many broadcasters, and I was working for most of my career on that side of the business, we try to bet on the successful formula, being an experienced director, a writer with a track record, because we want to gather the elements of success for this series or this work, which is legit. But at the same time, we should take into consideration, how we expand this market and how we grow this market in terms of talents and in terms of production values at the same time.
I think like Wesam was going to say, I think it differs from market to market. So I like how this panel is put together, because I think we all have different, we're operating in different markets. So in Egypt, I can say we do not. I disagree. We don't have any scarcity of talent. We have many talent. I think it's about maybe we don't have an organized way in which how these talents come to fruition. But at the end of the day, we have a lot of talent across the board in all positions. I think the issue is with again, I'm speaking purely Egypt, is with the gatekeepers. So the gatekeepers are used to pool A of writers and pool B of directors and pool C of actors, and they keep on going back and forth. And these are the people that their shows or their films get made at the end of the day. So we don't go outside this pool. So I think from my standpoint as a young studio, and our journey is similar to the Tilfaz journey in Saudi, where we came from the online world and then we broke in. So we were able to bring with us some of the talents, and some of them that they have become very famous. So I think it's just about giving in Egypt. No, we don't have scarcity of talent. It's about giving people a chance.
Amazing.
So I think there is an abundance of talent that needs mentoring, and I like the ecosystem thing. I think is very important, especially in a industry that is at its infancy or it's in its earlier stages. And so that's why I think it's important to have programs like we have. There's a program that started with Image Nation, this with CMA. That's the Arab Film Studio program, and where people are trained screenwriting, directing, and producing. And through those programs, they end up going into internships on feature film sets, on TV sets. And then with certain partnerships we have with like Spooky Pictures, they go on to intern in Hollywood on bigger productions and then come back here and find themselves in bigger positions. So the talent is there. It's nurturing them. It's helping them find their craft, giving them the opportunities. But also it's about setting expectations that this isn't just a handout to go and test something. This is a business, and so you need to vet and make sure that they've gone through that special training, and as well as the thing where there's like that small pool of people who everybody just goes to. There is definitely a need to go and look beyond that pool and to see who is out there. There's a lot of talent, especially with how accessible things are now, that you might not see them and they might not reach you because they're heading in their own direction and don't think that a bigger gatekeeper or a bigger commissioner is approachable. So I think there's definitely a need for an approach, a systematic approach of finding those undiscovered talent and giving them opportunities that might not be as, it's a risk when you do that. So we've had recently a success story with this, with like a proof of concept method, where a director directed, who is selected and who was someone who resonated a lot with the script. The screenplay was written by Sarah Saykh, female Emirati, and was looking at different directors who what she thought was suitable. And Maithal Awadi, she was the one that had the chance. She shot and directed her proof of concept, which was one scene, but it was actually one of the most difficult scenes to shoot in the movie. She had 2 days, full crew to shoot it. And then by seeing that, yes, she pulled it off in the right way and elements, the themes, and that was intended in the script, she was given the chance to direct her first feature film on a big budget. And she did really well.
I mean, it's interesting because I speak to a lot of people, especially when I speak to the audiences even, from an audience perspective, they always say that sometimes the same faces are being recycled across screens and country and across markets. And therefore, there is that need, especially among the young audiences, that they would like to see new faces. Of course, new faces who deserve to be seen, because that's also kind of an aspiration or inspirational to them as well. I think it's important to note that today the Arabic content, or any content for that matter, is also a source of inspiration to the different audiences. They're not there just for the sake of entertainment, right? Which brings me to the challenges that we face, or do we face such challenges when we are creating original Arabic content? My question is on two fronts. When we say original Arabic content in the MENA region, you're still dealing with a diverse audience, right? Be it from different Arabic dialects to different cultural nuances, etc. How are you able to deliver or to create a content that succeeds both on a mass level appeal, so to speak, but at the same time you're able to monetize it, right? You don't want to go niche, because niche you may not have the large audience size, but at the same time, how would you be able to address these cultural nuances and differences across markets in the MENA region? Wesam?
Well, you hire archers, first of all. Okay. No, but
I guess that's how I make my money when I ask these questions.
So
This is product placement.
Exactly.
no, listen, it's a great question, and it's I can't speak from a place of trial and success, so to speak. But our solution to this problem is a very disciplined process and an evidence-based approach, right? So if we want to reach a wide audience, we need to really get under the skin of that audience and understand what is missing in the market and which pockets of the audience are underserved, so to speak, and has the potential to grow and further grow the market. Today, and specifically from where I'm standing, which is, we're focusing on making films only at the moment. There's a wide notion or belief in the Saudi market specifically today that if your movie is not a comedy, then it won't succeed, it won't make money, right? That scares me. Personally, for someone who wants to build a sustainable business in making films for the Saudi market, because if everybody starts to make comedies, the market is gonna reach oversaturation very soon. Which is why it's important to just kind of monitor the trends and just understand where is it that we can play. And that's one aspect of it. But we also need to be very careful when it comes to budgeting these movies. Right? Recently, because of all the excitement from movies like Sattar and Hamour and Mandoob al-Layl and Shabab al-Bum, who have destroyed records and beat a lot of Hollywood movies. I mean, Sattar beat Avatar in Saudi Arabia, which was unthinkable, right? So people are getting more excited, and they're putting movies out for $4 million, $5 million, $6 million, which I think again is very risky. So we really have to always look into economies of scale, hedging the risk, and just kind of growing with the audience little by little until we reach that level. And I think from our standpoint, yes, we're definitely going to do comedies, but we would love to kind of give it a twist, right? Add a genre to it.
I need to interrupt you on, building it slowly and gradually. Do you think we do have the luxury of time with an audience that is so exposed to outside content, to international content? Do we have the luxury of time to build it slowly, or should we take really a big risk?
My answer to this is always, it depends where you look at it from. You look at it from a story perspective or a development perspective. You look at it from a production values perspective. Production values, I think again, two opposing folds, right? One, the competition is tough because you're competing with the production qualities of Hollywood and wama shaba, yani. But the other fold of it is obviously it's easier to achieve higher production values by throwing money at it, so to speak, right? But I think the challenge and the opportunity is in focusing on the development, focusing on the story, which we tend to, and we've been saying this for years, panel after panel after panel, right? And I think it's getting better. People are focusing a little bit more. They're giving development more time. But it's not just time. It's time. It's ensuring that we're following the conventions in terms of craft, but also understanding the audience and ensuring that the characters that we're developing are stand-ins for the audience. What are the social stigmas? What are certain demographics facing today in society? Are there mental illnesses, for example? This is something that's now, prevailing in society after COVID and everything that's happening in the world. These are topics that people face on a daily basis. It needs to represent them. Someone said something that I thought was very smart yesterday on another panel, where there was a time where we used to say, oh, this only happens in the movies, right? Now it's like, oh my God, this happened to me before, or I know someone that went through this, or this is a very real experience. Time is shifting. People want to see themselves in the movie. They want to see someone else going through a similar experience to them and relate to it.
From my side, I think if we break it down the way Wesam was talking, where we talk about films and series separately, I think with films, from an Egypt standpoint, I'm very worried, like Wesam, about the fact that only comedies are working, but there's only Egyptian comedies are working outside the borders of Egypt, which is basically in Saudi. So there's a very specific formula. You can't, unfortunately, you can't really fine-tune the formula that much on ground, because you have the star that you're catering to that's worried about taking risks. And so much of my time is spent on just this relationship, because at the end of the day, he or she's the one that's making the money in Saudi. On smaller budget films in Egypt, all genres potentially work. So you do have, if the budget is well managed, you do have a chance to have a lot of amazing films come out, or a lot of different films come out, like Voy 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 and those types of films. For series, you have a chance to take a lot more risks. I think here, I think it is about you can spend the time on the storytelling and on kind of seeking out what kind of genres potentially work. I think if you tell a very generally, if you tell a very authentically local story that resonates, that is understandable to a regional audience and is not too nuanced in terms of everything is so Egypt specific to the point that you're like, this is Arabic, I understand Arabic, but what are these guys talking about? Then it has potential to work.
Going with universal Arabic, the Arab-related topics.
Yes.
But yeah, I think it's, when I've been doing research about what are the key important factors that make person decide whether they're gonna go watch a movie or not, and storyline is always in the leading factor. Storyline, right? But we're also seeing a trend where especially the young audiences. And the reason I'm focusing on the young audiences in my question, because they do constitute the biggest population size in our region, right? When you ask them about what kind of storylines, there is more and more appreciation of bold stories, controversial stories, etc. As companies that produce content, either you produce the content and put it directly, or you're being outsourced to produce it for another company. How much do you think you have the freedom, or you're comfortable producing storylines or dealing with storylines that are controversial or bold, okay, and at the same time, without, let's say, offending other type of audiences? Is this a risk that you think the market is open for?
Let me take a step backward to the sentence you said about the audience and shifting, do we have the time with everything that is being proposed to that audience, from Western to Korean, from US to Korean to Turkish, etc. Speaking about the rise of Arabic drama. And in a previous session today, I think, presented by Ipsos, there was a slide saying online viewing between AVOD and SVOD. The classification came first Arabic series, second Arabic movies, third Turkish series, and fourth Western drama. So there is still an appreciation in terms of mass viewership to Arabic production in terms of series or movies. So I move to your role, the quantitative role here. In terms of genre and in terms of themes, this is limited most of the time to the client. Whom am I working with? And their ability to take risks. It's not my ability as a production company only, because they are most of the time, they are the commissioners. They are the ones who are looking for a certain genre, being it a comedy like Wesam was saying about the movies, and there is a theory of cycle here. So there is a cycle of viewership, and people tend to follow comedy for a certain period of time, and then they get bored of it. They go to something else, being it thriller, suspense, and so forth and so on. So the ability to choose, we do propose to channels and platforms type of content and genre and scripts, but it remains by far their call to decide what they want to take. In movies, it's a bit different because the dynamics are different. Unless you are being commissioned also by a platform, you're not going theatrical and taking the risk yourself. You're being commissioned as well by a platform that their studies, their research tell them that they are looking for comedy. They are looking for thriller, etc. And it depends which territory. Again, Egypt is one thing, Saudi Arabia is another. Maybe in North Africa there is a different trend.
Talal, Image Nation Abu Dhabi is venturing heavily into Emirati content, appealing to Emiratis mainly, and then, to the rest of the Arab expats. How much part of your content development strategy will tap into quote-unquote controversial and bold topics?
So first, I'll bring that into the idea of the time, I mean, how much time we have. I think there's
حبيتوا لها السؤال حبيت.
yeah, and I think it bridges into this one very well. So I think the audience has always had exposure to Western content. It's not a new thing. It's not a new ticking clock. This has been there for a long time. The new thing is the introduction of other cultures, like you said, Korean films and Turkish content, and which is a little before, but you know, Netflix and Shahid and Stars Play has given you that opportunity to see content from all over the world, which is now getting the audience, even the younger audience, that hunger to see themselves also reflected in the films. And like the filmmakers who came from new media into longer form are the ones who are driving that. And they're driving the change and not the other way around. So it's the commissioners, the financiers who are keeping up with them setting the trends. And in terms of controversy, I think it's a step from the audience and a step from the filmmakers. Filmmakers always want to go beyond that line, but it's about finding that comfort zone and going slowly. And moving slowly is, I think, is a much better way than moving fast, because you do have the time. The audience is always just their hunger is going to grow, but the resources are limited. And if you overshoot what you're trying to achieve, then you might actually, it might backfire and then make the audience less eager for what's coming next. I think in terms of local content, how to make sure that works it's to make that resonate, and something that the audience will appeal to. I think in markets like Saudi Arabia and the UAE, especially since those industries are far newer, the audience are a lot more critical about how they're being represented, because they haven't had enough of the time to see themselves represented. So comedy and drama have always been the safer genres, where because you sort of know what to expect. When it comes to action and horror, those how do you say it? You said it was the conventions of those genres that need to be established properly, and so that's where the audience will be hesitant on seeing.
I'm a bit. I mean, I know that we across all markets, we're not the only market that we always refer to genre, like comedy, action, adventure, and then we just try to say where each content fits in and what the audience wants. But do you think that if we move into the future, we should stick to genre, or we should just go with labeling content by mood state, let's say, as an example? And therefore, you don't have to necessarily say it has to be comedy. If I am in the mood of laughing, I could watch an action movie and laugh, right? There could be some, it doesn't have to, if I'm in the mood of, say, I just want to go and escape my reality, it could be any genre for that matter. Why are we stuck to genre?
I don't know the answer to that question, to be honest. But based on our findings and our analysis, what we're seeing succeed more are movies, as you said, with multiple moods or multiple genres, right? So it's a comedy, but it's got an action aspect to it, or a massive action aspect to it, for example, or two or three other genres attached to it as well. But I think, genre means fandom, right? And it also defines taste, because not all the audience are the same, right? They all have different preferences and different tastes, right? And some of them are very serious about what they consume. I think most of them actually are very serious about what they consume, right? So, which brings me back to the importance of, establishing the genre convention in a way that the audience have always been used to receiving that content. But I want to go back to the previous question about controversy, because I don't think it was addressed. And I want to use an example. Fadi is here, and we both lived the experience together back in the 2012, 2013 days when Umar was made, right? I mean, this is yeah, like, listen, I mean, and Fadi, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but leading up to Ramadan, as Umar was being produced and promoted, we all felt like our lives were at stake here, right? Social media was blowing out of proportion, everybody was angry, and we just felt like, this show's going to be canceled, or, they're probably going to cancel the whole TV station, right? But 2 or 3 days after the release of the show, Lord behold, it was the top trending show. Those who were opposing it were the biggest fans. Everybody was watching it. And until today, everybody is very fond of that series, right? So I think controversy is partly challenging the audience. It's going back to one of our earliest discussion points here. You need to elevate the taste of the audience. You need to challenge the audience. The audience love to be challenged, even though they'll tell you, or you know, you'll always hear this old notion of الجمهور عايز كده. But you know, when we kept saying الجمهور عايز كده for years, Turkish drama and Spanish drama came and changed the game, right? But I think it's important that, yes, it's risky. Yes, a lot of commissioners don't want to take the risk, and they say it bluntly. Why should I be the first one to try this genre? But I think collectively, we need to all agree that if we want to grow this market, we need to create more variety of content. We need to elevate and challenge the
Yeah, and I think, sorry, I have to put my research hat on. I think what some companies miss or content producers miss is, what is the need state that brings someone to a certain piece of content? The biggest one in our part of the world is creating conversations. They need content that creates conversations among them while they're watching it or after they watch it, be it on social media or when they are in their, you know, coffee shop, etc. I mean, in my belief, I think controversy is the biggest topic that will create that conversation, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, following on Wesam's point, it's not a black and white. So even we're not, you know, suggesting or asking the commissioners to take full risks. It's a percentage, 80-20. They can go 80% of what is successful already and do more of the same. I know they want to keep the rating going and they want to keep the advertising sales in terms of free-to-air or the subscribers coming in terms of SVOD. But yes, there is a need, at least within a margin of 10 to 20% to take artistic risks in terms of trying new themes, if I don't want to call them genre. And within our, you know, I'm not saying far from our cultural and social, you know, norms, within our cultural and social norms, but we take more artistic risks and try new themes. And television has always been about trial and error and discovering what worked and what couldn't work. Sometimes we do a lot of research and it fails. And we don't, you know, we suggest that this series or this title is gonna really make waves, and it doesn't. And we discovered that something else, which we were not really thinking that it would work beautifully, as you said, you know, rightly so about Omar at the time. Everybody was skeptical that, you know, the whole channel would be cancelled, if not. And it turned out differently. So learning and discovering is part of the process. And I will always add to it, embracing failure in that respect. What could fail is not the end of the world. On the contrary, we learn a lot from failure in that respect. And we learn a lot why it failed and how we should approach it, build on that next time, exactly.
Yeah, I'll just add maybe 2-3 points. Firstly, I think from in my experience, I find that the platforms, the regional platforms, are not averse to taking risks to a large extent. We don't work TV, so I don't have that experience. But on the 8 to 10 episode series, I find there is an appetite for risk. I'm speaking from a genre or a standpoint or from a content standpoint, not necessarily from a star standpoint or from a director standpoint or that type of thing. More so than the global platforms. I think the global platforms, they come in with all this data, and then they just, in my humble opinion, regurgitate, you know, like global content and make it. I don't like the content. I don't consider it quality original content that's taking the industry anywhere further. I think it's taking the viewer backwards and the industry backwards. I'll say something. I want to give props to the Saudi because this is a good jealousy that I have, and I wouldn't have ever thought. I think anyone that I would say such a thing, but from a censorship standpoint, because I think this is important also in terms of what you can and can't say in the content. I think Saudi it has become much more advanced in terms of what you can and can't say versus Egypt. So there's a lot of things that, if I'm working with Shahid, for example, obviously, so Shahid wouldn't mind it as an NBC-owned platform, and this is obviously being brought. The people in Saudi are seeing it and across the region. That I have an issue clearing in Egypt with the censors, or I can't clear it. So I just wanted to.
Can I also, just to follow up on Badih's point, and I think Badih, you bring a very important point here where it's about the allocation, it's about the percentage and where you want to take the risk. Yeah, because it goes beyond genre, right? And it is the old Hollywood model as well, because each studio will create a slate of films. They know that 2 or 3 films of that slate is going to bring them all of the money back for the whole slate. But the rest of the slate, what they do with it is experiment with genres, experiment with new directors, experiment with actors, give the writers and the talent a chance to take the experience and elevate their craft, right? And I think it's important because it answers all of our questions. It trains the talent. It allows us to find new pockets of audience through exploring different themes and different genres or different moods, as you said.
I also want to add to that. There's, I think, the resistance initially with the audience is the fear of seeing themselves or people like they know being portrayed negatively in film, and that is a.
ما يمثلني.
Yeah, exactly. And they're being conservative and offended by what they think people are portraying them as. But story is about growth. It's about learning. You have to have flaws in your characters, and you have to see something evil to show something positive. So that's usually where those global themes are: evil, good versus evil, and love and hate, and coming of age stories. So someone can't be mature and perfect if it's in a coming of age story. And it's just that exposure, the repeated exposure of seeing themselves in those stories, and then realizing that, okay, if I wait till the end of the story, I will see that it isn't so bad to be portrayed like that. And the more these things happen, the more everybody else benefits from it. So from Umar, I'm sure there's going to be something else that is going to be maybe a little bit beyond that border. Or with our film El Kamin, there was the first time we worked with the military on a feature film that initially we thought would be very difficult to have access to the stories, and it's a true story, but we were lucky, fortunate for them to help and collaborate with us in a way more than what we expected, and that I think is going to help other government entities work with filmmakers like the police or hospitals or others that might have been afraid of certain controversies, seeing the positive that can happen, the awareness that media is not just entertainment or finance, but it's also a way to preserve culture, it's a way to export culture, it's a way to keep the identity of your audience by seeing what they see from other movies, from other cultures in their own films.
Speaking of expert, that would be my last question for now, and then I'll leave the floor for the audience in case they have their own questions. So for a very long time, we have always been importing content from abroad, right? Either importing it originally or importing it, Arabizing it, and then having it on across different platforms. Do you see a future where it will be the other way around, where we will be really exporting original Arabic content to the world? And what does it require to get there?
That's already happening. There's already markets that will come and ask to be able to have adaptation rights for Arabic films.
As he said, it's happening on few cases in terms of drama series. One of them I recall Al in Turkey. There are other examples also in the market. However, to answer your question, I would say in a short sentence, on one hand, elevating our production values. We need to elevate our production values so we are able to attract the Western
Sorry,
viewer.
what do you mean by value?
elevating our production values from script development, from the directing techniques, from the acting, from the time we give to this production to be produced and not discovering 3 months before that Ramadan is coming and we need to rush and produce 30 series. However, having said this, and when I started with the one word you asked, I said good, because I consider that Arabic drama is not in a bad place, and with the various experiences from one country to the other. But there is a big room for improvement.
Yeah.
And also in one of the sessions, many series, Arabic series, are being watched in non-Arabic speaking countries. And one of them is Safah al-Giza is watched, I found out, in Germany more than in Egypt in terms of SVOD. So yes, we are not in a bad position, but we need to elevate, on one hand, our production practices and our production values in terms of the elements I mentioned. On the other hand, it should be a two-way thing as well. I'm not sure how the West or Europe or other places in the world, how much they are receptive to the idea of having an Arabic content. And this requires one thing. Our content needs to be as good, and we need to push for it. And I remember a short anecdote when I was at NBC. There was a delegation coming, and I thought there were 2 people coming to see me for a Korean series. And there was a delegation by 10 persons from the Ministry of Culture, the Ministry of Trade Ministry, and from the embassy, and from production companies, coming to push Korean drama back in the days on our channel. So we need support as well. It's not only individual initiatives. You need support from our respective countries, ministries of culture, from the government bodies to push this content elsewhere.
Yes, I agree very much. I think since I'm the Egypt representative of the panel, I think we've done in Egypt an absolutely horrific job of exporting our content beyond the borders of the region, which we didn't even exert much effort into. Honestly, we all speak the same language at the end of the day, and we were producing the most content for the longest time. So you guys pretty much basically had, you had to watch it, and then hopefully some of the stuff you liked. But we're doing a really bad job. I think I agree wholeheartedly. I think a lot of this is not an effort of an individual producer or even a few producers. I think this needs to be some sort of a government initiative. That we're leaving a lot of money on the table, and I see some of the initiatives. I don't have any full insight into what the Saudi government's doing, but I saw I think I came across a few initiatives where the Saudi government's trying to do this. For them, in my humble opinion, maybe it's a little bit too early, but better early than starting than not starting at all. Like like we have. So maybe the Saudi government can encourage the Egyptian government to come along for the ride or something. We'd love to come with you guys. And
Yalla bina. Whether it's going to happen or not, I believe it's not the question, with all due respect. I think we all have to put our best efforts for our local content to travel beyond our borders, or else we're just going to hit a saturation point and a limit to the growth of our market. We have to find the market outside. Look what happened to the quality of Turkish drama since it found an audience in the Middle East and Latin America, right? But how is it going to get there? I think this is the question on everybody's mind. I don't know if we have an answer yet, but I believe there's 2 aspects to answering that. One is Arabic content needs to be known for the international audience for something, for a specific property. If we look at Scandinavian content and why it traveled, it's because of the darkness and the noir and whatever. Korean is because of the music and the dynamic characters and the colors and all of that. Turkish, the family drama, good-looking actors, those who obviously love soap operas. And the examples are many, right? So that's one thing, and I don't know what's that property that's going to gravitize the international audience towards Arabic content. And the second aspect is the content needs to be authentically local. We should not design the content for an international audience. It needs to hit a nerve with the local audience. It needs to trend and engage the local audience before it can travel. Squid Games, it's a very Korean series. It's a very Korean story, right? All of Hollywood are very American stories, right? But they traveled because people are always interested for, I've seen you do research reports since 2006, and there's always a common theme. People want to escape when they consume entertainment media. And it's that escapism that takes them through a journey in another culture and through a world that they don't know and they don't usually interact with.
So I agree. I'm like, you stole my notes. Yeah, the film has to be authentic to its identity, right? Like, so if it's, it has to speak authentically before it can travel. Because no one wants to see a film that is engineered synthetically to be made for a wider audience, because then you don't see the truth in it. Voy Voy Voy, which is a co-production between us and Film Clinic and Vox Cinemas, is very authentic, and it had a human or global themes, and global themes aren't like international themes. So like I'm gonna pick an international theme and use it in my those themes are human to everybody, like the themes I mentioned earlier, and so that's what the global audience or an international audience will see and believe and resonate, because everybody has a family, everybody has fallen in love, so if you actually nail it so it feels sad or funny or adventurous, and then it moves on.
We're running out of time, but Wesam, you tapped on a very important point, which is what is our unique selling proposition, and therefore we go with that to the outside world, right? And I think my question to you guys is, what does it take you to collaborate on identifying that unique selling, you as producers of content, to come and say, what is this unique selling proposition? And let's, work, towards that. Each will produce their own content, but towards that, and collectively work towards, exporting that content to the outside world. That's, again, I'm not expecting an answer. I'm just saying that that's a thought and probably a dream to come true.
Remaining true to ourselves. This could remaining true to ourselves in terms of
totally agree.
That could take us to our unique selling point. And I always use the example when Najib Mahfouz, the Egyptian writer, was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature, about stories that took place in the slums of Cairo. They were not about New York or Paris or London.
Correct.
I just want to say, sorry. I think we might not see what that unique selling point is because we are within it. It's if you're true to yourself, others are going to recognize what that identity is.
Probably, yeah. Any questions? Wow. All right, so we're going to take an hour and a half. That's interesting. So, yeah. Shall I start with Fadi? It's just because I know Fadi's name, right? It's not
Thank you. Wesam, you reminded me of the golden days of Umar, but you forgot another earlier example whereby the first time we got Turkish content and we did a focus group, and the focus group was negative. If the NBC leadership...
They didn't do it with archers, though. Just for the record.
Yes, definitely.
No,
I vouch for that. So if the leadership of NBC listened to what الناس عاوزة كده, what people want, we wouldn't have Turkish. The whole world wouldn't have had Turkish. My question to you all is, okay, sitting as a producer with you, I've pitched so many ideas to many streamers, and I love the answer. It's almost a cliche. We love the idea, but it's not what the people want. Now, obviously, since I will wear now again the hat of an executive, the executives want to play it safe, want to feed the audience what they believe they want today, not what they don't have, and risk-taking. Risk-taking is not exactly the best thing that executives are good at. My question to you, but yeah, you've mentioned the missing parts, the elevating the production value. Wesam, you mentioned about the slate, the idea that nothing works automatically. Not every single TV series and film will work. This is not how the business works. But you didn't mention one thing, and that will give the ability for producers to do the genre, to experiment, because they have the guts. But before the guts, they need one thing, which is not available: finance. There are no sources of finance, except if most of the cases you're commissioned by X or Y or Z. There's no other doors to knock on. Even rebates come in the end. If you don't have money, don't wait for the rebate. The rebate is not going to come in the beginning. Is finance the biggest of the problems? Do you agree to that interpretation of what we need to rise to have the original Arabic content rise?
I think it's also, first of all, Fadi, I didn't forget, I actually always use that very specific case. And I think part of that focus group was, the recommendation was not to use Syrian as the preferred language of dubbing, right? And I think, this is a very prime example, and I use it all the time, of, sometimes you don't look at the research to see what the research is telling you, but you need to also look at what the research is not telling you. And it takes someone like, with your experience and Sheikh Walid at the time, with that gut, that experienced gut, to look at what the research is not saying. But I think, to answer your question, I think it's the classic question of the chicken or the egg, right? The market needs to develop, whether it's the government entities, the incentive programs, or the private investors, and I'm talking from the film perspective, need to develop that confidence, right? The problem we have today is that you have so many passionate investors in Saudi specifically, and that connected with very passionate producers, young producers, that, for lack of a better expression, did not know what they were doing, right? And that developed a lack of trust in local content in the market. And I think that's the problem. So I think we keep pushing, we keep honing in on the craft, on the development, on the production values, as Badih said. And little by little, this trust is going to come back. But yeah, I mean, people want to put money in, they want to see it back.
Money
right?
is always important. We're not negating that. Sorry, I'm running out of time, so yes, please.
From Dubai Studios. My question is, I want to pick up on the example that Badih said related to the content that is trending in Germany in terms of viewership. The thing is, every time we look at the platforms, the content that actually trending on certain platforms, we look at the Arabic platforms that are popular in international markets. So when we talk about the success of content, we would love that the content would resonate with the Western audience, or probably with audience that is not Arab. So such examples would resonate with the same Arabs who just seems to be geographically in a different place. This is in terms of one comment. But on a separate note, I would like to ask, when we talk about international or exporting content, we usually look, content is divided into two. We have the films and then we have the series. When we consider exporting content to international markets, would it be faster, or would have faster potential for films to travel than series, or vice versa?
Films, I will answer the last part, because films have a different dynamics. They participate in film festivals, especially the independent films. They are at many times funded by Arabic, yet by European and US film funds. So they do have the model of co-production more than the Arabic television series.
Lebanese films travel very well.
Exactly. And Kafar Nahum, one of them, by Nadine Labaki, although it did well in box office in China, but she got the funding as many other independent films. And this funding and this financing that Fadi was mentioning about is important here, because they are not asking you at many times to return the money, unlike in television, which is, you have to return it. So even if the money is there, you have at the end of the day to sell it beforehand and to secure that this financing is safe, or it will be a one-time and they will never deal with you. So back to the film issue, yes, they have a different dynamic. And it goes to indie cinema houses. whereas Arabic drama has a different a cycle. And platforms, international platforms now are giving us the opportunity for this content to be showcased in other territories, but yet to be identified if the Arabic viewers in Germany or in the US are those who are watching, or the American viewer or the German viewer are watching Arabic content. I don't have the answer for this as well.
Can I add that? So I think, in a short answer, I think television might be an easier medium to export, just because the platforms are there and they exist. It's a much easier way to distribute, whereas a film is theatrical, and then you have to go look for it. You have to be at a certain place at a certain time, unless you know about it and find it. But there's, so there's always these, formats now that travel. And so a lot with docuseries as well. So maybe this is not Arabic language content, but it's original Arabic content that then is in English or it's in multi-languages. Like we had the $1 million listing UAE that was on Stars Play, and that was that was seen outside the region. And there's another docuseries called Unstoppable: The Italian Dream that also has that approach. But in terms of film, it's more difficult because then you need a co-producer or you need a distributor who has a big push who's going to do that for you. They have the same stakes that you do. With El Kamin we had AGC, so there was distribution outside of the MENA region. There was in Asia, it was in North America. It ended up on Apple TV and iTunes and Google Play, and it had, it's not going to be as seen outside of the region that it is in here. But again, they're looking at, Pierre Morel, the director, has that appeal, and you have a budget, and so those are rare cases when you have those co-productions. You can, but with TV, there's a much more natural path for it.
Yeah, I think I'll add. I think the international platform. I agree that series are easier to travel, but the issue is the international streamers are looking for content that is. They're not taking risks, like Fedi was saying, and they're looking for content that hits certain criteria in the region, and they're not necessarily willing to venture and take a risk. And I think what we need is a few lucky hits that extend beyond the borders. And there's the only lucky hit, in my opinion, because I don't consider the docu stuff in the same genre, is the film that was called Honeymoonish. So Honeymoonish, I think it was a pretty relatively low budget film made for a regional audience, and everyone, including the people in the platform, I'm guessing, were very surprised to find it top 1, 2, and 3 in many South American markets and many, I think, European markets, and not because of the Arab diaspora like you were mentioning, but because Western or non-Arab audiences, they watched the movie and they liked it.
The Rawabi School for Girls as well. The Rawabi School for Girls had a big following outside of the MENA region.
I guess there's, like any recipe, there's so many components that need to be in place, right? Because even if you have the best value, production value, but with not a proper marketing, let's say, and marketing budget, it doesn't work either, or it may not work. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. You tapped a lot into data, etc. We'll have a separate panel on that, especially with Fadi. Thank you very much for being attentive, and thank you very much for our panelists, and have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you all.